It was a big Saturday at BMO Field as Toronto FC rounded out their MLS season, taking on Lionel Messi and Inter Miami. TFC, like they've done on a regular basis this year, start off decent. Like they start well. They're the worst second half team in all of Major League Soccer, and it came back to bite them in this one. No Messi from the get-go. There was a lot of pink, a lot of people out to see Messi in this game for good reason. And they left happy because Messi came on in the second half, played the last half an hour, and Inter Miami went on to find a late winner through Campagna.
Ball.
Great ball,
Finish.
Great goal. The Supporters Shield winners in Inter Miami, teaching Toronto FC a lesson. They beat TFC 1-0 the final. TFC had been eliminated from playoff contention. Their season is done and dusted. It was a big deal that they weren't going to be playing Decision Day, but if there's no decision to be made, it probably works out better this way that TFC is not playing at all. Wheeler, Wilson, KJ with you. This is match night here on One Soccer. It seems like we're on repeat when it comes to Toronto FC. A big off season ahead because they have a lot of underachieving, high-paid players who are difficult to move. Yes, some of those players are coming off the books, but they're going to be needed to be replaced with players that are capable of playing at a certain level. And quite frankly, this season, especially down the stretch, nowhere near good enough. Jordan, where does Toronto FC go from here? Whether it's players, whether it's manager, whether it's identity as a club. They still need a new club president as well. Plenty of work to be done.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot to get into. I think I'll focus on something that I hold near and dear to my heart when you're looking at football clubs. Just lack of leadership. I think from the top straight down, I think what you're seeing as well, when you play week in and week out, you know you need an army. Some players are going to be injured as well. But I've asked this, and I always ask about teams that you look at. What is their brand? What is their identity? Who are the players or the people that are living it out, KJ? And when I look at TFC, there are far more questions than answers.
Yeah, there's lots of rules of management here you have to put in place. First of all, you have to evaluate your talent better than anybody else can evaluate your talent, for good or for bad. You have to have those hard conversations, and you can't be blinded by the fact that you think he's a good guy or he's not a good guy or he's got to know him better and he's got potential. You have to have those hard conversations with people who know the sport. They need to get a president in there. And I think the entire organization needs to have needs a little bit more humility, and I feel for the fan base. You know, I hope people who are watching this, who are Whitecaps fans and Montreal fans, who are probably laughing about this, understand where I'm coming from, because I love their clubs as well. But when we root for the sport in this country, we root for clubs like this. And what's gone on at that club has been heartbreaking to watch. I'm not a fan of Toronto FC. I'm not a fan of Montreal. We're fans of the Canadian sport. We're fans of the game in this country. And we're fans of the fans who pay all the money to go and watch this team, and the potential that this club has, the money and the payroll that they spend, and the ownership, what the commitment is to this club. To see it just dragged into this beyond mediocre time is appalling. It's been really, really run into the ground, and it cannot continue. There's got to be a plan to move forward, and anyone not willing to be on that plan, I don't care how good you are or how much money you paid, you've got to move on.
You know, I've spent a lot of time around this club since day one. To me, in many ways, it's unrecognizable. And not in a good way, KJ. Like, there was a vibe, there was a spirit around the club, and now it seems like they're lost at sea, which is an indictment because you do require leadership in order to steer it in the right direction. If you get to what's going on in the field, I just look at the squad. It's nowhere good enough for me. I just look across and what the players are earning, and I ask myself, what other team in the league would pay that player that price to come play with them? And I come up with maybe one or two, and then I look further down the road and say, how many of these players are going to be part of the solution? How many players do you keep for the next 2-3 years? One or two? And those players are both going to be over the ages of 30 in Osorio and Larea, because they're local players who provide leadership that want to be here. Yeah. Other than that, it's a tear down, rebuild, redo again,
We're gonna start,
which is crazy.
We have to talk to the Italians, though.
So let's go there right now, and let's hear what John Herdman had to say about Lorenzo Insigne's inability to stay on the field. He only played about 10 minutes on Saturday, and his biggest intervention came after the final whistle. Here's the manager, John Herdman.
Yeah, I mean, you could see he didn't have much in him. I think he managed to get Messi's shirt, though. Yeah.
What more do you say? I mean, that caught more headlines. KJ, I think about Lorenzo Insigne's season. There's two things that stick out. Pulling a player's beard in the Canadian Championship and being first to get Lionel Messi's kit, his jersey, post-match after a game that you were eliminated from the playoffs. What say you?
I got a lot of things to say. I've watched this player almost in every game he's played for this club. I'm going to show some numbers in a second because I wanted to do a deep dive into what did the numbers tell me what my eyes told me. I want to start by, before we show the numbers, I want to start by saying that, managing extraordinary players like this, and he is, because he got paid the amount of money, it can be tough. And managing difficult personalities like that, it can be really difficult no matter what you're in. So my heart's out there for people who are trying to get the best out of this guy, but they haven't been able to do it, and it's multiple people, not just one, right? It's been going on for 2.5 years. For lots of reasons, the lack of performance, the amount of money that he's on comparable to he's paid more than the entire squad put together, and there's a Bernadeschi on there as well. I've said this before, it's the worst contract in Canadian sports history. It's the worst. Find me another one, okay? And I want to say this, for me, he can't kick another ball for this club. He cannot kick another ball. You've got to find a way of building the culture back with this organization. And when you've got managers like that coming out, that is his last resort. We can't imagine what the conversations have gone on behind closed doors. When now they're publicly, this club has protected him so often. The captain hasn't spoken against him. They've protected him so much. But when people tell on themselves, you've got to start believing them. And when we see the evidence in front of us for the little time that they're shown on, why did he give us 10 minutes yesterday? Why didn't we leave him on the bench? The 3 minutes in the last game, So my eyes have told me for a long time that when he's on the field, your key difference maker is not making the difference. Yeah. Let's run the stats. I want to show you a few things that I worked on and why. Because, first of all, this first stat is brought up for a reason because he hasn't played enough games. You look at the number at the top. 14 wins, 10 draws, 30 losses in 2.5 seasons isn't enough. That's not groundbreaking. No one at home is going to learn anything about the fact that a $15 million player, the team is better when you're on the field than they're not, okay? Yeah. So I did a deeper dive. So after that, I wanted to show you the next one. Okay, so what is the situational like when he's on the field? How many minutes has he spent ahead when he's excited? How many minutes has he spent tired when we need you to do something? And how many minutes has he spent losing when we really need your big players to step up? Percentage minutes have gone down every year, which is not good as the player gets older. You've got, a depreciating asset and you still got two seasons to pay him. The numbers are alarming, but the percentage number of losing is considerable. So for me, I looked into that as well, and I want to show you the next stat. What do you do when your team is not winning games? This is when you pay your money to pay. How do you get back into this game? And the team has led 30 times and they've won 14. Now, I know you can take the lead multiple times in a game, but that -16 is enormous when it comes to statistical analysis, that you can't hold leads. And the other one, that is scary. The times they've trailed compared to the games lost, it effectively tells you, these are all numbers when Insigne's on the field. When you're down in a game and Insigne's on the field, you are not winning that game. They won one in 2.5 years. That's enough of me, but they've won one in 2.5 years, guys, when he's on the field and they go down. This is a $15 million player, the second most highest paid player in MLS, that they're paid to win games, and he hasn't delivered. And the issue for me is that if the management can't get the best out of you, okay, it's not breaking news that a star player is not listening to his coach. But when the critical mass of the dressing room, Jordan, you know this more than I'll ever know, it's not just the captain, it's not just the manager. When the other team and the leaders in the dressing room are looking at you and you're letting them down as well, it's gone.
It's finished.
It's done. It's done. And I've watched a number of these games, and that's why I ran the numbers. I see him on the field, and I see a team looking at him and going, we're not going to be able to get back in this game. And the numbers told me the same thing. And that's what he's paid to do. And if you can't do that and the culture is torpedoed, it's time to go and get him out.
Furthermore, there's no trust. I think when you're looking at that, you broke down with Leeds as well, where you trusted him to get back, to give us all. Is he going to be fit enough to finish a match? KJ, I love the analysis. I love the breakdown. And I just look at it as well. He came July 2022. He still has 2 seasons left on his deal. $15 million a year. You're paying out that to get rid of this guy?
Who's signing that check?
15 mil a season, so there's 30 mil.
If you can pay for him to play, you can pay. If you can afford for him to pay him that much, you can afford to let him go.
But the problem is, you're not just paying that; you're paying another player to come in to replace, and that'll be the expectation. They're already losing money on this. How much more are they willing to lose in order to turn things around? Because it's
you're going to lose a lot more culturally.
I hear you, KJ, but this is something that they trusted the manager to change. This was Herdman. He did it with Canada. This is his MO, that he can change players and get the most out of players. He was unable to do that with Lorenzo Insigne
But can you? That's my question. Like, can someone come in?
I understand your point,
change?
but sports doesn't always fall on one person when it comes to changing somebody.
Exactly.
The whole dressing room needs to change. That's why I talk about critical mass. It's vital. It is not one person's job to be able to do it. It is many people's job to be able to do it. And it's not just one tenure. This has been under different management, right? And many players, and they've... for me, it needs to be done. It needs to be sorted out. You've got to build the culture back up. It's not about what the team looks like first game 2025. It's how do we make ourselves better and get back to winning a trophy in 2027, 2028. And if the fan base have stuck through this, they'll stick by you.
You know I largely agree with you, but there's a difference into what will actually happen. And I'm not sure what will actually happen. Look, he scored 6 goals in his first 9 games. He scored 8 goals in MLS since. 8. After the 6 and 9.
And you know why he scored those goals? Because the team was flying, scoring 4 in the first half, and he was loving it. And the moment they get behind in games, he disappears.
And the squad still isn't good enough. He's been miscast. Like, he's not a goal. He's not Javinko. He was never going to be Javinko. It was nice to see him on Saturday, by the way. Just completely miscast, bad price, bad contract, bad times. There was also dissent against the way that the match on Saturday was presented. There was a large contingent, and rightfully so, and understandably so, that were at BMO Field to see the great Lionel Messi. Here's what John Herdman had to say about that.
I mean, it's tough, eh? You know, you're in a game like that and you're expecting the last 30 minutes to feel like it's a pressure cooker for everyone. And it felt like a circus, you know. It was... But when you bring the best player that's ever walked the earth, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, it's just a gift, I think, for the fans, the people of Toronto, to be able to see that man in the flesh. You know, so I understand it. I understand it. Coming from the northeast of England, I can't comprehend it, but I understand it.
Messi, across this tour that's lasted the last year in MLS, this is what happens on every stop.
Yep.
It's just not here in Toronto. I think that fans, whether they're casual or hardcore alike, understand if you can witness someone like this in the flesh, then you go and do it. Yet there's been pushback saying, well, you shouldn't be there just to see Messi, you need to support the Reds. And I think there's a little bit of a balance there, and I think that the comment is fair to a certain degree. But to tell or admonish fans for going to see Lionel Messi seems a little bit crazy to me.
Absolutely. It's a once in a lifetime.
Yes.
Well, like, if I could afford it, I'd be there too. Watching Lionel Messi stop. This is the best player to ever walk the face of this earth, like John Herdman said. I'm like, kids want to go. This was a feel-good day. I know for the Reds and for fans, they didn't make it to playoffs, but you got to see and smell the same air as Lionel Messi. I totally understand why there's pandemonium with that.
It's a phenomenon. I've talked about this before. We've seen it in Copa America. I've been blessed enough to see it in World Cups. It happens in World Cups. So if it's going to happen in World Cups, it's going to happen in the great city of Toronto when he appears there for the first time. We have to be careful that we're not hypocrites here. You know, ultimately, a lot of this fan base have been going down there and watching nothing short of dross for far too long. Let them go out there and enjoy it. When fans become talked about in the media, we get lost in it sometimes, that we think that, okay, well, it becomes a negative story. That was a wonderful scene yesterday. Yeah. John Herdman put it well. You know, at the end of the day, he's the greatest footballer to ever be placed on this planet. You had the opportunity to watch him. I was delighted for the people that got to see him in this great country to see it. Why not just celebrate that? And the other thing is the club, they were trying to sell on the basis of him coming this season tickets. So you can't have it one way and then expect the other. I don't think the club did, by the way, but I'm just throwing that out there. So a special time to see him. Delighted that everyone was there. TFC were, in a way, given a bad hand here. The fact that it was the last game of the season and it meant a lot for them, and it's coming off a midweek game. So hopefully they'll get Messi next year in his prime in the middle of the season on a weekend, and then we can enjoy it and everyone can have that.
I'm just thrilled that he played, that he came on. I had so many people reach out, were worried that he wasn't going to play. That's
I didn't
so
think he
special
would, truthfully.
that he came on a field in what was a meaningless game for them. Problem solved. If you go in and punch your playoff ticket earlier, then you won't face some
People
of these.
will never forget that moment.
Yeah.
That's what life's about right there.
Look, I'm looking on Instagram
KJ,
stories.
it's not
That's
as
the
if
only
like
thing I'm
this
seeing.
hasn't happened before with other players not as good as Messi, but popular. You know, David Beckham, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I remember those. I love seeing Wayne Rooney in the flesh playing at BMO Field in Major League Soccer in a playoff game for DC United.
I remember when Didier Drogba is coming as well, and people, Chelsea fans are coming out the woodwork.
Sports are all about, guys.
One Soccer Today. We'll talk about this more Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on One Soccer. Coming up next, Jesse Marsch is named his side for the Panama match on October 15th. It's O Canada, O Baby, presented by CIBC, and it's coming up next on Match Night.